All right, good Friday evening, everyone. It is weather for Weather Geeks as we wrap up the week and wrap up Severe Weather Awareness Week in the state of Ohio. Thankfully, we have not had any severe weather in recent days. May change a little bit over the weekend. We'll talk about the storm threat and all the threats coming our way weather-wise this weekend in this video. But first, a review of today. We've had a few days like today this week where the morning not so hot, but the afternoon featured some improvement. This time lapse shows the sky gradually clearing this afternoon after a foggy, misty, cloudy morning, and then clouds did increase once again as we got into the late afternoon and evening hours. As I mentioned, Severe Weather Awareness Week wraps up today and tomorrow, and we've been talking about all aspects of severe weather this week, safety tips, reminders, and just some general information about all the aspects of severe weather that threaten our area, especially as we get into kind of prime severe weather season, which for us tends to be in the late spring and early summer. One of the aspects of severe weather that maybe doesn't get as much attention as some of the more high-profile parts of severe weather, tornadoes, large hail, strong winds, it's flooding. Flooding actually impacts our area much more than the other modes of severe weather. We've seen this over the last couple of Mays and Junes. Moving water in particular is very, very dangerous. It does not take much moving water to carry away a vehicle. A small vehicle can be carried away by a foot of fast-moving water. Only 18 to 24 inches of fast-moving water can sweep away SUVs, vans, and trucks. This is why we say turn around, don't drown. It's why we really harp on this as we get into the spring and summer especially. If you see water and you're thinking about driving through it, don't do it. You don't know how deep it is, and not only in Ohio and Pennsylvania, but in every other state in the country, we see video of people getting stranded and people's lives being endangered by their cars being washed away by floodwaters in areas that look like it was okay to drive through. You just don't know how deep it is. All right, speaking of severe weather, it's going to be a pretty busy night, I suspect, tonight. From Wichita to Kansas City to St. Louis to Springfield, maybe over towards Indianapolis, even parts of central and southern Ohio may have a gusty thunderstorm before the night is through. The highest risk is in the yellow. That's the slight risk. We're kind of a 2 on a 1 to 5 scale from Wichita to Indianapolis. So that's something that will bear watching overnight. Already a severe thunderstorm watch is out early this evening as of 6:48 across parts of Missouri and a couple of counties in far southwestern Illinois as well. This activity is pretty benign off to our south and off to our west. Really no severe weather or really no lightning and thunder at all with that for the time being. Closer to home again, clouds increase again late today, but we're going to miss out on the showers early this evening before those showers become a little more likely as we head through the late evening into the overnight hours. And our high-res futurecast shows the possibility of some localized downpours as Saturday gets underway. Not going to be surprised if we hear some claps of thunder at the start of the day tomorrow. I don't think there's much of a severe weather risk. At least it's pretty low. It may not be zero, but it's pretty low early in the day on Saturday. Let's talk about the rest of Saturday. What we have going on is a warm front heading our way, and not only do we have the risk of the occasional thunderstorm, but the atmosphere will be pretty juicy by late March standards, so a low-end risk of flash flooding from about Interstate 70 on north on Saturday, including all of northern Ohio and a good chunk of western PA as well. This warm front will usher in unusually mild and somewhat humid air into our region, and so I think it's going to be a big severe weather day tomorrow off to our west, especially out in Illinois. I mean, this is a moderate risk. That's a 4 out of a 1 to 5 scale, and I think there's going to be several tornadoes tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, far eastern Iowa, around the St. Louis area, heading up towards Chicago. And again, while the risk lowers as you head east, it doesn't lower to 0. And so we have to be on the lookout, I think, for the possibility of a couple of feisty storms, especially I think late afternoon tomorrow as our warm front moves in. It's going to take a lot of the day before this warm front moves in. So while we have a high in the lower 60s in the forecast for tomorrow, that's probably not going to occur until late afternoon. And there might be a pretty big temperature gradient across our area tomorrow. Southern Columbiana County, you might approach 70 tomorrow afternoon, while north of the warm front in Kinsman and Greenville, and maybe as far south as Cortland, Vienna, Sharon, it may be in the 50s for most of the day. But anyway, this warm front will trigger showers at just about any point. Could be a thunderstorm in some spots. And while our model doesn't show much right now, as this warm front keeps lifting late afternoon, not going to be surprised if we have some storms trying to break out along that warm front. And anytime we have storms breaking out along a warm front, typically what you see is quite a bit of wind shear, a big change in the wind direction between down here at the ground and upstairs. Our winds here at the ground maybe still have kind of an easterly component, while the winds not far above our heads are more out of the southwest. And that vertical wind shear can create an environment that is conducive for thunderstorms and possibly even some strong winds. So something we'll be keeping an eye on, especially late in the afternoon tomorrow. So here's what I've done with our severe weather risk right now, pinpointing 4 to 8 p.m. as maybe the time of day in which this would be the highest risk. Now, overall, again, the risk is not nearly as high here as it is out to our west, but the risk doesn't go to zero, so it's worth talking about. Wind damage, maybe some hail, and can't even rule out an isolated tornado with that kind of wind shear setup end of the day tomorrow. Now, a fair amount of rain is likely heading our way later tonight, off and on through Saturday, and even into parts of Saturday night, Sunday morning. Our models here showing an inch or two, and if you get a hefty thunderstorm, maybe even some spots get a little more than this, but it's impossible to say where that's going to be right now. But at least an inch seems pretty likely as a good average across our region through Sunday morning. Now, the second half of the weekend, showers will stick around in the morning, maybe a rumble of thunder Sunday morning. But then as we go towards lunchtime into the afternoon, I think we're going to get into this dry slot. The sun's going to come out, and it's going to warm up. I've got 71 now in the forecast for Sunday. It was only a few days ago I had a high of 47 in the forecast for Sunday, but it looks like the cold air would arrive a lot faster a few days ago. Now it looks like it's going to hold off until Sunday night, so we'll get into the lower 70s on Sunday. But as the sun comes out and the atmosphere becomes very well mixed, some of those very strong winds from aloft will get pulled down, and I think wind is going to be a big story for the second half of the day on Sunday. I think we're largely dry after about 10, 11 a.m. on Sunday, maybe a late day sprinkle or a shower. And then a lot of clouds into Monday morning. It's going to be a much different day on Monday with temperatures staying in the 40s. So yeah, temperatures Sunday. Now, it's interesting to remember we have hit 70 officially at the airport once this year. It was back in the dead of winter on January the 11th. Our second warmest day was earlier this month. It hit 69 degrees. I think we've got a good shot at the warmest day of 2020 so far, with maybe 71 or 72 being attainable before our cold front rolls through Sunday afternoon, and then whoosh, back to the mid-40s Monday morning, and temperatures may only rise a few degrees on Monday. Not much has changed with our thinking as far as the wind goes. Not much wind Sunday morning, but then it starts to become feisty by midday, and I think 40 to 50 miles per hour and perhaps even wind advisory criteria will be met across the region second half of the day on Sunday. So 63 Saturday, 71 on Sunday. Wettest part of the weekend will probably be Saturday morning. That being said, showers can still dampen the area from time to time. Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, Sunday morning, maybe just the most consistently wet period could be Saturday morning when we look at the weekend as a whole. Next week, it's back to ho-hum. No more 60s, no more 70s, and very close to the average, it looks like, for a lot of next week, with small chances for rain midweek, but overall it looks like a pretty uneventful week. And this looks like a pretty cool to average pattern to me as we go through the first 10 days of April. I think the 60s and even lower 70s that we'll see this weekend, maybe the last 60s to around 70 that we're going to see for some time. It does not look like a very warm pattern compared to the average to open up the month of April. All right, have a great weekend, everyone. I'll stay in touch with the weather throughout the weekend and update you on the severe weather risk Saturday and especially late in the afternoon. Otherwise, make sure you're following the rest of our team, including the Storm Tracker 21 accounts on Twitter and on Facebook, and have a great rest of your Friday night.